This week, the U.S. Senate confirmed its first military promotions in months, taking up individual votes yesterday to confirm two four-star generals to lead the Army and Marine Corps. A day earlier, the Senate confirmed General Charles Q. Brown for the nation's top military position, whom President Joe Biden nominated 4 months ago. It's a very small dent in Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville's blockade of hundreds of military promotions in protest of a Pentagon abortion health care policy. It has posed a grave risk to national security and is a symptom of a Republican Party still led by a former commander-in-chief whose astonishingly deep disrespect for the military and veterans continues to seep out and emerge, revealing the ex-president as an outlier in a country with a tradition as old as its existence of respecting and honoring and seeking to lift up wounded veterans and their families. From that stunning piece of reporting in The Atlantic that we brought you yesterday on what General Mark Milley witnessed of Trump's disrespect towards soldiers and wounded veterans. Quote, these sorts of moments, which would grow in intensity and velocity, were disturbing to Milley. As a veteran of multiple combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, he had buried 242 soldiers who had served under his command. Milley's family venerated the military, and Trump's attitude toward the uniformed services seems superficial, callous, and at the deepest human level, repugnant. Joining me at the table, founder of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, host of the Independent Americans podcast, easy for me to say on a Friday, Paul Rieckhoff is here. Amy is still with us. Since I read this, I've been dying to talk to you about it. Your thoughts?
I'm not surprised. I'm encouraged that the stories are starting to get out because I think these stories have permeated throughout the Pentagon and the military for years. I think it's an important distinction and cleavage for the Democrats to take advantage of because Milley is an honorable person. He's the kind of person your kids look up to. He's got integrity and he's a true leader. And it's such a sharp contrast to the disgusting human being that is Donald Trump. I've struggled with how to communicate all this to my kids. And every day I look up and I say, well, don't be like that guy. Don't be like that guy. And I think the Democrats have to push that harder. And that's why I'm encouraged that this week they got tough and pushed the vote on Tuberville. We've been talking about it on this show. I think Schumer did the right thing. He pressed a vote and he said, let's go on the record and see who wants to stand opposite a true American hero in CQ Brown. And Tommy Tuberville and 10 of his radical buddies voted no. And now they're on the record. And America can see that out in the open. They put politics first, they put patriotism second, and they continue to undermine our national security and our troops. And I think it's important in appealing to independence. I keep saying this, but 49% of the country is independent. They care about national security. They care about integrity. And if they don't like both options, they're going to go with the one that's not disgusting, that's not detestable, that has integrity, and will put country first.
100% of Americans, I think, believe that a wounded veteran deserves, at a bare minimum, our respect. And the vast majority of Americans, I think, believe they deserve for the rest of their life to be revered and thanked, right? They go and do things that the civilians haven't signed up to go do. And if they pay that ultimate sacrifice with an injury, they deserve a lot more than what Chairman Milley's telling to The Atlantic describes they got in the story of Luis Avila. We read it here yesterday. I mean, how do you... I don't want to minimize the treatment by politicians when someone in the military has given so much more on the battlefield. But how do you make sure that our politics don't re-traumatize people who've given the country everything and more?
Leaders have to take hard stands. And I think Milley has been muzzled. And he hasn't been able to speak out. So many folks in uniform haven't been able to speak out. And he's retiring, I think, on October 1st, because now we finally have a replacement name. I hope he speaks out strongly, ferociously, and other military leaders. Amy is starting to organize many of these folks who I think can really cut through the noise. And I think for Biden, it's an opportunity, again, to differentiate. For folks that don't like either of them or feel like they're both too old, Biden can say, look, my kid has been in combat. I understand what this is like. That's kind of like the best of Biden, when he can really be empathizer in chief and consoler in chief. And I think this cuts to a strength that they would be smart to elevate. I think the Democrats took too long to take on Tuberville. Elizabeth Warren was out in front first. And we want to see them punch back. Like, America wants to see people hold the line and uphold the integrity of this country. And every time you do that, the American people are going to stand with you.
Amy, there's something that I want to say about these stories. I've covered Trump for 8 years, and I've heard these stories for 8 years. A lot of them seeped into public when Trump said about John McCain, I prisoners who I like soldiers who weren't captured, I think was the quote, shocked everybody. But then we went on covering Trump like he was just the Republican nominee. And then he disparaged the sort of wounded when he refused to visit a cemetery on a trip to Europe in France. And stories seeped out again through the Atlantic that he didn't want to go. Why do I have to go? Why do we honor them? There's been reporting about Trump viewing the men and women who serve as, quote, suckers and losers, and those who die or are wounded as the worst of all. It's now confirmed. It's on the record. They're not leaks. They're not whispers. He believes that wounded veterans are the lowest form. He, quote, doesn't want to see them again. I don't know that our normal political sort of conversations can account for what a grave trespass that is for a former commander-in-chief. What would you like to see happen next?
Well, it's abhorrent. And, you know, like Paul, when these rumors of this sort of thing were happening over the last 4 or 5 years, certainly during the Trump presidency, every time one of these things came out, you know, we were taken back by it. Like, how can a commander in chief say that, think that? What do we do now? Well, we speak out. And, you know, I mean, a lot of military leaders don't always want to do this. Of course, when you're in uniform, you can't do this. And that is very, very important to our civil military relations. But those people who are out can stand up and say, hey, you can't treat our veterans this way. You can't treat our wounded veterans. I mean, these are the people that gave enormous sacrifices for our country. And it's just flat out un-American. And so from a political standpoint, you know, look, I think that the Democrats and the Democratic Party need to take the flag here and run with it. They are the party of national security anymore, because I'm sorry, but the Republican Party, as long as you have Donald Trump as your leader, who treats veterans this way, who treats the folks who gave the ultimate sacrifice to our nation, all the way back to World War I and Bella Wood, which you referenced there. You treat them with such disrespect. You cannot be the party of national security. You cannot be the party of the military. You cannot be the party of veterans. So I think Democrats need to stand tough here, and all Americans need to stand tough here.
I'm going to put you on the spot, Amy. You brought some former leaders who are in a new role now, you know, entering the political fray because of the extraordinary threat they believe Trump represents. Chairman Milley has spoken out. He's put this story on the record. It's in the Atlantic. But we know from that reporting and other reporting over the last 8 years that Secretary Mattis had to have seen and heard these things, that Trump had an edict to never, ever, ever, ever see a wounded veteran appear. His chief of staff would have known that, all 10 of them or 4 or however many there were. I mean, what is, in your view, the obligation for people who saw something to say something?
I personally wish they would be more public. I think that the American people deserve that. I respect what they've done. I respect that their office, you know, was very high, and I'm sure that they want to be, you know, in private life now and not have to deal with this. But the fact of the matter is, this is a big deal, and you know, not just his mistreatment of veterans and military personnel, but it's even deeper than that. It's his disregard for the Constitution itself. And I think that's what prompted so many national security leaders who have been speaking out for a long time to even be more vocal right now. It's this, you know, we swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And when it's undermined, when you have a president, and in this case, a presidential candidate, who has said over and over again that he would throw the Constitution away, you gotta stand up. You got to say, look, I know our tradition and norms have been that we kind of are silent. We don't really want to get into politics, but this is bigger than politics. It's not about red or blue. It's not about tax policy. It's not about, you know, any of that stuff. It's about the Constitution. It's about our democracy itself. And that's why you're seeing so many people say, hey, I gotta I got to be out there. I got to be vocal.
And I need to sneak in a break, but I want to put to both of you the contradiction between, quote, never wanting to see him again, a wounded veteran, and then wanting to reach deep into the justice system inside the military and pardon someone that Milley describes in The Atlantic as a war criminal. I have to sneak in a break. We'll be back with that next. We're back with Paul and Amy. So, Paul, the part of the reporting that I was alluding to is that starts with this harrowing tale of Trump saying, I never want to see that again, about a wounded veteran. But it also goes into Milley's one-on-one conversation with Trump aboard Air Force One about Trump's desire to intervene in the military justice system for someone that Milley's explaining what he did wrong and slitting the wrist of a prisoner, ISIS prisoner, he says those actions are war crimes. And Trump says, you're all killers.
The ultimate test for America, for the military, for voters, is the commander-in-chief test. Do you trust this person to keep America safe, to make the right decisions in issues of war and peace? I think that's the most important issue that voters think about at the end of the day. And I think it's the thing that we can push on Trump. He is a danger to our national security. He undermines our military. He cozies up with Putin, and he's incredibly unstable. So you've got to ask yourself, are you really comfortable with him having his fingers back on the nukes again? And I think if you listen to folks in the military, they're telling you no. We had a commander-in-chief forum on this network back in 2016, and we asked the country to compare Trump and Clinton. We pushed that issue forward. Veterans pushed that issue forward. I think that's the issue that has to continue to be put forward now. Can you trust this man being in the White House, controlling our nukes, controlling our military? And the answer is no. Everybody in the know says no. The question now is, can Democrats especially go on the attack, push that message, and put that question before the American people? And they've struggled to do that. I think now they're making headway. This is the right path, and pushing Tuberville is the right way to get there, but they got to do it even harder.
I mean, Amy, this is how old I am. It used to be the only question, right, before the American people. And on this specific question of the nukes, that's answered by Milley as well in this reporting in The Atlantic. The answer is no. Yeah. The quote about the nukes is he has, I think, singular control, or he's the only one with control, but he can't launch them on his own. I mean, even the nuclear arsenal, by Milley's telling, was not completely secure with Donald Trump as commander-in-chief. And I wonder if you could just take me through what you would like to see people like Chairman Milley do when he leaves next Friday in terms of helping the American people understand what he saw.
Well, I think that the chairman should say as much as he thinks he can. I recognize that there is a strong tradition of not wading into political matters. And that this is obviously a political matter, but it's a matter of national security. The American people need to know this stuff because we cannot elect a commander-in-chief that would hurt our national security and really, as Paul said, make us unsafe. I mean, and again, with all the things that are going on, the Republican Party, of course, used to be the party of national security. But now they're disqualifying themselves almost on a weekly basis with all the antics with Senator Tuberville, but also the most basic fact that they still are following this ex-president who clearly has zero respect for veterans, zero respect for the military. He never even knew what the triad was when he became the president. The day that Joe Biden took the oath of office, lots of Democrats were happy. You know why I was happy? Because Donald Trump didn't have the football, the nuclear codes next to him anymore. And that to me, I breathed a sigh of relief just as an American who knows something about our national security. That's a big deal. And so, what I would hope the chairman does is, take some time off, but then allow folks, American public, to know how unfit this guy is and how he does it. I mean, obviously, he's a super professional guy, and I think he will do that.
I mean, there's also safety in numbers. Well, I made a quick list of all of the national security people who saw Trump up close, who declared him unfit. Corker, Tillerson, Milley, Kelly, Gates, H.R. McMaster, Esper. There are no outliers except Mike Flynn. So, right?
Yeah, and I think you have to talk about how do we stop Trump? right? And you stop Trump by moving independents in key swing states. And how do you move independents? It's not with Elizabeth Warren. It's not going to be with Chuck Schumer. It's going to be with General Kelly, General McMaster's, General Mattis, General Milley, and Mike Pence. Yeah. Right? It can come from inside, too. If Pence starts to really talk, he can damage Trump probably more than anyone. So that's who I'm looking to, and I'm looking in the camera saying, do it for America, speak out. We need you now.
Do it for Luis Avila. I mean, it's sick stuff that's coming out, really sick. Paul and Amy, thank you very much for spending time with us on this. I wanted to talk to you about it for 2 days. Another break for us. We'll be right back.